Let's talk about something that pretty much all of us deal with every single day, that feeling of being distracted. We're always told it's a weakness, right? A lack of focus. But what if all that mental wandering is actually a sign of a brilliant mind at work? Let's dive in and really unpack that. So, does this feel familiar to you? You're right in the middle of a task, maybe a meeting, or even just a conversation, and suddenly your mind is just somewhere else. You've probably been told your whole life that this is a flaw, a lack of discipline. But what if that's not the whole story? Not even close. See, on one hand, society slaps this label on it, lack of focus. Simple as that. But on the other hand, psychology is starting to offer a totally different perspective that maybe, just maybe, this is the signature of a highly active, incredibly complex mind. Okay, so first, let's just tackle this idea head on, that distraction is some kind of flaw. We're always told to sit still, concentrate, shut down that inner monologue. But what if that advice is actually holding you back? Here's the core idea. The issue isn't that you can't focus. It's that your brain is so active, it's constantly processing the world on a whole other level. You're not ignoring the task, you're just picking up on connections and details that most people's brains just filter out. So how does this actually work? What's going on in there? Well, it really comes down to the fundamental wiring of your brain. Let's look at two key concepts that explain this, starting with something called hyperconnectivity. Hyperconnectivity. It might sound a little technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Your brain just hates loose ends. When you learn something new, say a random fact in a documentary, it doesn't just store it away. No, it's instantly trying to link it to a book you read last year, a conversation you had yesterday, even a half-forgotten memory from when you were a kid, all in an effort to build a richer, more complete picture of reality. So what does this actually feel like in your day-to-day life? Well, it means you're just never satisfied with a simple, surface-level answer. Your brain is immediately asking, okay, but why? And how does this connect to that other thing? This isn't a lack of focus. It's a relentless, built-in search for depth and meaning. And all that deep thinking leads us straight to our next big idea, cognitive complexity. This is your brain's natural talent for seeing a situation not just for what it is right now, but for all the things it could be. It's like you're examining every possible angle, every tiny detail, and every potential consequence, all at once. And this is exactly why you might come across as being indecisive. You're not stuck. Your brain is just running this incredibly high-level simulation, processing a dozen different variables that other people don't even see. It's a feature, not a bug. Now, this intense processing power creates a really unique relationship with information. It's less about just learning stuff and more like a fundamental hunger for knowledge. And it shows up in some very specific and often misunderstood behaviors. I bet you've experienced this. You stumble upon a new topic, could be anything, and for the next few days, you are completely obsessed. You're watching videos, reading articles, you just learn everything you possibly can. And then, almost as quickly, you move on. This isn't random. It's your brain's curiosity system giving you a little hit of dopamine, that feel-good chemical, as a reward for feeding it something new. Now, to an outsider, this can look really flaky, right? Or inconsistent. But in reality, you're just feeding this powerful intellectual appetite. Once your hunger for that one topic is satisfied, you naturally move on to the next source of mental nutrition. It makes perfect sense. Okay, let's talk about the messy desk, or the pile of laundry. Psychologists actually have a term for this: selective organization. See, a highly active mind is absolutely ruthless about conserving its energy. It instinctively puts its power towards what it decides is important, like a complex project or a big new idea, and just lets the unimportant stuff fall by the wayside. So, this isn't laziness. It's actually a form of high-level mental efficiency. Your brain has simply done the math and decided that developing a revolutionary new idea is a way better use of its precious resources than, say, organizing a stack of papers. All right, now we have to be realistic here for a second. While everything we've talked about points to a really powerful mind, there is a crucial caveat we need to cover. Sometimes distraction isn't psychological, it's biological. And it's really important to be honest with ourselves about this. There are definitely times when a lack of focus isn't a sign of brilliance at all, but simply a sign that our bodies, and especially our brains, are not getting the fundamental rest they need to function at their best. Let's just walk through how this happens. It can start with stress or even just exposure to blue light from our screens before bed. That leads to what scientists call fragmented sleep, where you just never hit those deep, restorative stages. And that directly weakens the part of your brain that handles attention control, which makes you super vulnerable to every little ping and notification the next day. But, and this is a big but, if you are well rested and your mind still feels like this amazing whirlwind of thoughts, well, then it's very likely you're simply operating on a different mental frequency. So let's get back to that. A key trait of this kind of intelligence is something called metacognition. And all that means, quite simply, is the ability to think about your own thinking. You aren't just having thoughts, you're constantly aware of them, analyzing them, and even critiquing them, all in real time. And this is why you get distracted. Your rich, complex inner world is often way more interesting and stimulating than the spreadsheet or the meeting that's right in front of you. And while sometimes it can feel like a burden, this constant self-reflection is the very engine of your personal and your intellectual growth. So if you've spent your life feeling scattered or maybe just a bit different, I really want you to remember this. You are not broken. Your mind is just wired for deeper thinking and more complex problem solving. You're just operating on a higher frequency. And that really leaves us with one final and, I think, pretty provocative question to think about. What might actually become possible if you stopped trying to force your mind into some normal box? What could you create or solve or become if you finally stopped fighting this incredible cognitive engine and started working with